Do you know how invasions work, Tarnished? We made a whole video talking about the history of invasions in the Souls series before. We thought that video would be enough to cover all aspects of the invasion system, but we found a comment on it that sort of grinded our gears, so to speak. Here's the comment in question.
The tongue doesn't activate PvP.
He's talking about Taunter's Tongue, by the way, which activates PvP when you're playing solo.
It just increases the invasion rate, just like the dried finger in previous Souls games. The fuel calling remedy acts as the multiplayer function.
To which Waifu responds, the tongue activates invasions when you're playing alone. You can't get invaded by human players when playing alone. And of course, our good friend, highly confident in his word, responded to the info sharing in this manner.
Man, you dumber than a box of rocks if you honestly think the tongue activates the invasion system.
Either a troll or a glue sniffer. Call it.
The problem with the guy's comment is not so much that he's misinformed, because anyone can make a mistake and that's okay. The real problem is how he doubles down on his misinformation, how certain he is of what he's saying is true, when a simple Google search would quickly shed some light into that empty space he calls his skull.
Imbecile!
Sadly, though, he is not the only one. The certainty some people have while still being hilariously wrong is something that will never cease to amaze us. And it's not only that they're convinced they're right, they act smug and cheeky about it too.
And hear me out, or just boot invaders out of your world with the finger thing.
That finger thing he's talking about is the Finger Severa, and it can only boot blues and phantoms, not invaders.
We all super low level and we're fighting people where it pretty much fills half of my bod with poison and does 70% of my health with one hit. They're these high-level players with top gear against people who barely started the game.
Except that isn't true.
To clarify from the get-go, no, you can't be invaded by high-level players while being low-level. You know who can be over-leveled in low-level gameplay, though? Password-summoned co-op phantoms. The amount of misinformation regarding PvP in Elden Ring is astounding, and that's most likely due to the fact that out of the bunch of CBT simulators from Soft spawned, this one in particular attracted a massive casual audience.
Mamma mia!
So today we are going to talk about the invasion system once again and explain how it really works in depth, just to make an effort to clear misconceptions before the DLC brings in more audience, you know? I mean, I don't know, I gave up on humanity a long time ago.
But I know what you didn't give up on though, on Mystery Thingy, the segment where you search other people's comments for answers, and I lovingly call you a household tool for it. The Mystery Thingy of our last video was the, it had a hard name. Oh right, the Magma Whip candlestick. So if you answered that, congratulations little Volkswagen, you won. Here's the mystery thingy for the next video. Be a smart little Volkswagen and answer it after you finish watching the video.
Alright apprentice, let's create a scenario for you. Let's say you just started your first Elden Ring playthrough and you're really happy about it. You enter Limgrave, try to beat on the tree sentinel, get brutally destroyed and repeat the process plenty of times while you insult your ancestors. You then realise it's futile to try to beat him, so you explore quite a bit of the world around you, and after a while you remember that you can actually summon people to help you explore. So you summon Gandalf, explore a bit, and then, oh no, there's trouble in paradise. The bad red man makes quick work of you and Gandalf, and you lay there defeated. Now my question to you is the following. Why did the bad red man appear in your world? You may have noticed that while you were playing alone, no red man was there to bother you. But the moment Jimmy entered your world, that's when it happened. You see, in Elden Ring, there are only two conditions to get invaded by a bad red man: summoning help, be it a player or an NPC, or using Taunter's Tongue. And both conditions come with their own properties, which we will discuss later. When a bad red man appears, he's matched with you depending on two variables: your current character level, which is pretty self-explanatory. It looks for gamers near your current level, and the highest weapon level you've had in your inventory since the moment you started this character. Sounds like a mouthful, but it's pretty simple actually. Let's say you upgrade your Morningstar to +3. If you didn't upgrade any other weapon besides the Morningstar, your max weapon level will be 3, so you will be matched with gamers who have weapon levels around that number. Now, let's say you found a Banished Knight Halberd and you upgrade it to +2. Your max weapon level will still be 3, because it's taking into consideration only the highest you ever had, in this case, the Morningstar. However, let's say you follow Rogier's questline and you receive Rogier's Rapier +8. The moment you receive this, your max weapon level will be +8. It doesn't matter if you discard Rogier's Rapier afterwards, your max weapon level will remain at +8 until the end of times or until you get a higher upgrade on any other weapon. Also, somber weapons function with a different system, meaning that a +3 normal weapon is not the same as a +3 somber weapon. This parameter cannot be reset at all, so if you planned on only being matched with people near +3 weapons and you accidentally picked up Rogier's Rapier, I'm sorry, but you will have to start a new character. This is made this way to prevent uneven matchmaking scenarios, making one player or the other have unfair advantages. And the way this is made is by running a simple formula to calculate what people you can be matched with. So if you're, say, level 30 with +3 weapons, you can be invaded only by gamers within the range of level 10 with +0 weapons to level 33 with +6 weapons. And you'll notice that the lower limit of the range is much wider, meaning that there's likely a much higher chance of getting invaded by someone whose level is severely lower than yours. But of course, all of these restrictions go into the trash if you're a password summon. But hold on, I hear you say, what about this evil red man? He clearly is high level, just look at him. Well, little apprentice, despite looks, this person still was low level when they invaded you. They're just extremely optimized for invasions, which is something that can be done just fine. It may seem unfair.
Which it is.
But if you watch our previous videos about invasions and twinks, you'll realise that once again, despite looks, they're still at a disadvantage. In fact, you can make any invader's life a living nightmare, merely by having good amounts of vigor, a stat that can be maxed out first on any build you make, since you don't need offensive stats for the early game, and by the late game, you'll have enough levels on you to easily have 60 vigor. If you have high vigor, you're harder to unalive. If you or your buddies are harder to unalive, you keep the numbers advantage. If you keep the numbers advantage, getting an invader is a piece of cake. And we haven't even covered the amount of healing flasks, rune arcs, blue phantoms, and much more. All of these advantages were implemented to help more inexperienced gamers deal with the bad red man, but sadly, they're merely abused by seasoned veterans, as those inexperienced players probably don't play the game anymore or avoid PvP altogether by disconnecting. Which is funny, because if you do it to avoid PvP entirely and focus solely on co-op, disconnecting from an invasion is the last thing you want to do. You see, when you get invaded and the invasion concludes in a natural way, a timer starts ticking. For 15 to 20 whole minutes, you cannot get invaded at all, even when doing co-op. The thing is, if you disconnect from a session with an invader, the invasion cooldown timer will not trigger. You'll disconnect, summon Jimmy again, and get invaded immediately afterwards. So, if your idea is to avoid PvP, this is not the way to do it. The timer is also completely deactivated whenever you use Taunter's Tongue, as it enables you to be invaded solo and with no cooldown, and also lets you have 2 red phantoms in your world.
Whoa! This is worthless.
So you see, invasions are not just the big high-level bad red man is bullying me, it's much more nuanced than that, which brings me to our last point. Have you ever noticed that sometimes even though you're doing co-op or with Taunter's Tongue activated, you encounter no PvP activity at all? This may be because your rune level and your weapon level are not in the correct sync. For example, if you're level 30, but you carry around a +25 weapon, you're most likely not going to find much activity, because not many players go around level 30 with a +25 weapon. The idea is to have a weapon level that would naturally sync with your rune level in a normal progression playthrough. If you can stay within these brackets, PvP activity is pretty much guaranteed. How do you think we make all of these videos paid actors? What may look like paid actors are these max level players mashing L2 like big dum-dums. But they're not. Click on this video to find out just how silly these players are, my little space rocket.